Every thought, every emotion, every decision has a hidden influence.
When we think of dangerous psychological profiles, we usually picture the extremes, individuals locked away in institutions. But the reality is much quieter. The most efficient predators operate openly in corporate boardrooms and political offices. In 2002, psychologists Delroy Paulus and Kevin Williams formalized a framework to describe these individuals. They called it the Dark Triad. This isolates three distinct personality types: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. This framework focuses on subclinical traits, distinct from clinical pathologies. They represent a range of behaviors found in the functioning population, landing squarely in the center of the bell curve. They hold jobs, manage teams, and build relationships. They simply rely on manipulation and deceit as standard operating procedures to navigate those environments. Understanding these profiles requires looking past the idea of insanity. We need to map the exact mechanics of functional, everyday exploitation. While narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy look different in practice, they all grow from the same psychological root. Researchers call this underlying base the dark factor, or D factor. In psychological literature, the D factor breaks down into specific traits. One is moral disengagement, acting unethically without feeling guilt. Another is spitefulness, the willingness to inflict harm on others, even taking damage in the process. This forms the triad's foundation. This combination ensures that the individual will always prioritize their own goals over any sense of communal well-being. To see how this single bedrock diverges into three distinct behavioral strategies, we need a way to measure them against each other. We will use this three-axis radar chart to plot their differences. The variables are impulsivity, ranging from low to high, strategic thinking, measuring their ability to plan long-term, and heritability, which dictates whether the trait is genetically inherited or a learned behavior. By plotting the variables, we can mechanically diagnose how each of these exploitative personalities actually functions in the real world. The first profile in the triad is the narcissist. The terminology originates in Greek mythology, with a young hunter entirely obsessed with his own reflection. Sigmund Freud officially adapted the name for psychological use in his 1914 essay on narcissism. Subclinical narcissism is characterized by a massive sense of entitlement, paired with a dissociative gap. The narcissist operates under an assumption of total infallibility. They believe they are inherently superior to everyone around them, removing any internal need for self-reflection. Because of this, they do not view other people as peers. To a narcissist, others are strictly instruments, sources of praise existing solely to supply validation. Plotting this on our chart shows a specific footprint. Narcissism ranks high on genetic heritability. It lands moderately on both impulsivity and strategic thinking. The narcissist's exploitation is not the result of a master strategic plan. It is driven by a continuous biological need to secure ego supply at the expense of others. The second profile is Machiavellianism. Out of the entire triad, this is the most dominant and the most normalized in our society. The term is borrowed from the Renaissance diplomat Niccolo Machiavelli, specifically his historical 1513 book, The Prince, which endorsed the use of unscrupulous means to gain and maintain political power. There is a critical distinction here. Machiavellianism is its only personality type within the Dark Triad that does not possess a clinical, pathological extreme. The mechanics are entirely pragmatic. A high Mach individual operates with high deception, low empathy, and an emotional detachment that allows them to make cold-minded decisions. They collect people as pawns. Crucially, this is a learned behavioral adaptation. It is a strategic response to an environment, not a genetic predisposition you are born with. On the matrix, the Machiavellian footprint is stark. They score entirely differently from the narcissist, mapping extremely low on impulsivity, exceptionally high on long-term strategic thinking, and very low on heritability. The Machiavellian is a highly guarded, calculated strategist. They achieve their goals through patience and structured exploitation, a sharp contrast to unpredictable cruelty. The final component of the triad is psychopathy. It is the least common of the three types, but by far the most severe. Psychopathy is driven by an absolute lack of empathy, coupled with extreme boldness. The individual feels zero remorse for the pain they inflict. Where the Machiavellian is patient and guarded, the psychopath operates with a severe lack of inhibition. They do not carefully weigh the social costs of their actions. Because of this high impulsivity, the psychopath is driven by immediate thrill-seeking. They act on what they want right now, and they demonstrate remarkably poor judgment, routinely failing to learn from past punishments. Mapping psychopathy reveals maximum impulsivity, very low strategic planning, and highly significant genetic heritability. Viewing the complete chart, we see exactly how these profiles diverge. The narcissist demands supply, the Machiavellian plots for power, and the psychopath acts purely on impulse without fear. While a psychopath is incredibly dangerous in the short term, their sheer inability to plan strategically and manage risk usually prevents them from surviving long-term inside a highly functioning institution. We have mapped these traits as distinct profiles, but psychological realities are rarely so neat. In practice, individuals often exhibit overlapping traits with blurred boundaries. Looking back at the Venn diagram, the true threat lies at the exact point of intersection. When an individual scores highly across the entire board, the traits compound. You combine the remorselessness of the psychopath with the long-term calculated planning of the Machiavellian, all fueled by the absolute infallibility of the narcissist. History provides clear examples of this extreme convergence. Joseph Stalin is often cited by psychologists as the optimal embodiment of all three Dark Triad traits converging into a single profile. This hybridized personality is capable of devastating cruelty, completely shielded by an impenetrable, highly functional strategic execution. This architecture of convergence is a live phenomenon in the modern corporate workplace. Empirical data shows that Dark Triad traits are statistically overrepresented in upper-level management. Very few executives ascend the corporate ladder purely by playing nice. These personalities thrive in hierarchies because, to an untrained observer, their behaviors masquerade easily as high ambition and strong leadership. A high Machiavellian's absolute lack of emotional empathy is routinely rewarded by shareholders as the ability to make the tough, necessary business calls. But if these traits are left unchecked by oversight, the organization suffers long-term institutional rot. Short-term gains are eclipsed by the destruction of trust, deep employee disloyalty, and highly toxic team dynamics. By learning to identify the exact architecture of the Dark Triad, you gain the ability to decouple genuine, productive leadership from hidden, calculated exploitation.
The most dangerous influence is the one you never notice. Subscribe to Visual Insights. New cinematic videos every week.